Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story in which the neighbor turned out to be a control freak. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. My aunt got some sweet revenge on her jerk neighbor. Some backstory. My Aunt Sarah is living with my Uncle Paul, who's very close to dying. He has a pet rooster with him for a long time, and you'll see how that comes into play. The story. So Sarah's neighbor built a fence and painted a color she wanted on one side. She goes and asks, "Hey, can you paint your side of the fence this color I want, please?" And Sarah's like, "No, thank you. I'd like to paint it white." The neighbor is now taking great offense to this and proceeds to call the city to file a complaint about Paul's pet rooster. They're in shock she would do something like this, so Sarah calls my dad about it, and he says to make the rooster an emotional support animal, and she does, stopping the neighbor from going through with the complaint. Sarah also told the city her neighbor built that fence without a permit, so she got fined. And our next story. So we aren't doing our jobs right, are we? For some context, this happened back in December 2013. Hit 18, wanted to get a job, earn enough cash to pay my way through college, that kind of thing. My very first job was as an assistant, basically that can do any number of random things. In this case, I helped run a Coca-Cola stand and a game platform within a children's fair. It'd last only for about a week, and the pay was decent enough for a brat trying to earn something for themselves, which was my case, even if the hours were pretty inconvenient. So there we were, 4 teens, 5 stands, and about 30 interchangeable kids per stand at any given time. The others were old hand at this. All of them had worked there at least once, and one of them even more. We declared her team leader on the spot. And then, of course, there was our manager. Let's call her Lazy B, or LB, I suppose, filing her nails and checking her phone while we all tried to organize ourselves, keep control of 2 stands at once. I, being the noob, and pretty fast when inspired, was delegated to this role shortly and without fanfare. TL ran a tight ship. After the end of that first shift, which was half day, LB was supposed to address any concerns we had. It was pretty stressful work, and TL told us it wasn't the first time someone just up and left mid-shift, and wasn't surprised they sent someone to keep an eye on things. LB up and left 2 hours before closing. We were baffled. She didn't look at us once, didn't even talk to us, nothing, zero, zilch, nada. So at the end of the day, TL took out her phone and exasperatedly asked us to tell her our concerns and she'd relay them to the LB. Her tone wasn't promising though. Then things got weird. Me, "Why don't you email this to the people who employed us?" TL, "What do you mean, OP? I'm sending this to LB, aren't I?" Me, "But if LB wanted to listen to our concerns, she would have stayed, wouldn't she? If she won't, it's only right to relay them directly to her superiors. She would have had to report them anyway, right? And insert name of employer wanted to know if there was any trouble." At this point, TL got a glint in her eye. I was pretty confused about this. In my mind, my solution was the reasonable next step. Damn, was I a naive, devious creature. TL nodded thoughtfully, recorded us all, and promised to make a report and send it to LB, her direct superior, and our employer. LB was there the next day, bright and early and fuming. TL, "You received my mail then." LB, "What's the meaning of this?" TL, "Our concerns. You were supposed to ask us yesterday and deal with them today, but we understand you must have had quite a busy schedule, so we compiled it ourselves." At this point, LB was turning a very intriguing shade of red. I remember wondering if she caught a cold or something. Sweet summer child, so sweet, so naive. There are no innocents beyond this point. LB, "I see. Then let's address them, shall we?" We don't have the money to get more people, so you'll have to figure something out on your own. I'm sure you'll come up with something. In regards to the stress, I said 1 person per game. Choose one and stick with it. Your responsibility is with the company. Lost children are not our concern. If parents get difficult, ask them to leave the premises. And on she went. Basically, she not only refused to address any of our concerns, dismissed them out of hand, and called us both incompetent and spoiled, she condescended us, told us we weren't doing our jobs right, and she hinted that we would get half pay. Look, I was a pretty sweet kid. A little naive, plenty kind, shy, quiet. So, we weren't doing our jobs right, were we? Okay. TL and I shared this look. So we closed down the most troublesome and popular game because we're short on staff, we're terribly sorry, put a barricade at the door and limited entry to about 30 people at a time, parents included, closed the second most troublesome and popular game booth, mine, incidentally in the last 3 hours of our shift so we could take short breaks to de-stress. We called loudly at the security guards when a lost kid wandered our way to their bewilderment. It's the company policy, apparently. Can't leave the booth to help lost kids. We got to talking this morning, you see. We smiled at ranting parents until they lost steam and started babbling awkwardly, looking a little creeped out. LB laid down the law, did she? Well, we were effing embracing the effing law and made it our B. On that note, that day we made about half what we did on the half shift. On half shift, we worked 4 hours. That day, we stayed from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., plus an additional hour for opening and closing, and most of what we earned were tips from the parents. TL kept note of it all with the precision and dedication I thought only surgeons and homicide detectives possessed. Apparently, road engineers do too. So you can imagine LB's face when she came in the next day, because she decided to be more proactive apparently and looked at our earnings. She accused us of taking the money for ourselves. TL gave her the impeccable record that she amiably reminded the woman she had sent our employer and her superior already of our earnings the day before. Reminded the LB of our suggestions, was shot down, we were reamed again. She repeated the same spiel. We grimly followed the rules even more aggressively than before. TL kept a log, brought a sheet of paper and asked the parents to sign, if they'd please, because corporate is doing a survey, you see. And when they didn't, she asked their kids, which were always happy to have a bic in hand to get to some mischief. Not to worry, TL had at least 200 of them in her bag. I figured we'd pass the event horizon about then, and I didn't even care anymore. Instead of smiling at ranting parents until they ran away uncomfortable and disquieted, I was good at this one. We called security instead. Corporate policy, harassment of the employees will result in the guilty party being escorted from the premises, and got them escorted out of the fair entirely. The most popular game remained closed. The other games closed for about 2 hours each irregularly while we took our lunch and bathroom breaks. It was anarchy at this point, and TL was unstoppable. Every day when she got home from work, she sent our list of complaints with an added bonus for each day that passed to our superiors, LB included, plus ourselves, just in case. She got in contact with the union to make inquiries, asked a lawyer friend to help her look at our contract, endured LB's rants each morning, and kept us informed and working as a well-oiled machine despite the chaos. It was awe-inspiring. I wanted to be her when I grew up. On the final day, things had calmed down considerably. LB didn't show up, which at this point was pretty suspicious, in hindsight, but we didn't care. It had been a tiring week and the calm was relaxing. In the morning, we only had to deal with a tourist group, no more than 50 total. None of them spoke our language to save their lives, but I was pretty fluent, even if my pronunciation was pretty awful, so we got them more than once and probably broke even from LB's crappy managing skills cash-wise, thanks to them alone. TL noted it all down religiously, and I played tour guide with her blessing, kept an eye on their kids when they ran around and translated for everyone. Then I saw LB walking to our booth. I'd already explained to a couple of the parents about LB and our circumstances, mostly to translate another gossip, so when they saw her and I confirmed her as LB, they told me to go back and they'd come to say goodbye later. They were really lovely people. So I reached my booth shortly after LB. And then there was silence. Literally everyone in the game platform was looking at us like, I guess people look at a train wreck? And then LB smiled and told us in tones of rejoicing and celebration that she was ready to address our concerns. I knew TL was angry. I knew A&L were angry. I myself was pretty confused because, hello, look around you, there's about 20 kids total today and not even in one of our booths at once, which was our actual most pressing concern. I may have said that out loud. LB looked stunned and indignant. TL looked delighted and stunned too. Everyone looked pretty effing stunned, yes? Yes. And then in the middle of that stalemate, the handful of pretty tourist mothers sashayed in, there's no other word for it, bypassed the ticket box, kissed me on the cheek, and put a 50 in each of our tip jars. LB. What the ever-loving F? She got back her bearings pretty quick, though, and began ranting. Then LB said that any earnings in our tip jars would go to the company since they'd been earned in their property and we were their employees. We should be grateful we wouldn't get half pay, and I got the hell back into the conversation because what the F? That's about when TL lost her crap, in that quiet way that makes people with vengeful siblings get the hell out of Dodge before crap hits the fan. I don't have siblings, but I have more than 20 cousins. When I noticed that TL didn't immediately come up with a sassy rebuttal, I made my excuses, grabbed A&L, and got the heck out of there. TL told us later that she'd memorized the company manual, out of sheer spite, her words, and told LB in perfect detail what would happen if she or the company touched our spoils. In very polite, very small words, just in case. She then asked us if we'd be willing to go to court over this because her lawyer friend told her we had a case if we wanted. TL told me I didn't have to if I didn't want to. This was my first job after all, and no one should make me feel pressured. If it made me or anyone else the slightest bit uncomfortable, she could carry on alone. A protested, of course. She was all for it. L was on the fence, though. But me? Well, it went like this, more or less. Me. If you need my help, I'll help. TL. You sure, OP? Me. Sure. I won't be coming back next year anyway, and I don't want anyone they hire to be treated like we were. That was my sticking point, believe it or not. I'd never worked before, but I've suffered secondhand the results of toxic working environment, and I don't want that for anyone, even now. Long story short, we won. We got our sizable paycheck plus 10 times that for, laboral harassment charges? I'm not sure if that's how you say it in English, sorry, but yes, in the end, I earned in a week what I'd need to pay for a year of college tuition. Thanks for being a B, Mrs. Manager. Seriously, good for you, OP, for getting a good outcome at the end of an amazing story. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.